All right. I think I'll give it, we'll just start. Because why not? Okay, so today's class is CMAs. Oh, as my phone goes off. Okay, so to get a feel for the people in the room, how long have we been in? We'll start in the back. 4 months, okay. I know you've had a class with me before. Was it this class? I think it might have been this one. I'm trying to remember which class it's like. This one ends up not taking a lot because it's technical and people don't like it. So I'm like, I'll take this one because I planned my life like 2 weeks in advance. Okay, so 4 months. What do you got? 2 months, nice. That's amazing. I did that the other day and was like 4,444. Like it was perfect. Yes. I appreciate that. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about CMAs. I'm going to go over how to do them and then how we make adjustments for marketability because appraisers value things differently than consumers. And then we're going to actually look at appraisals and see like what the values look like. So yeah, so I have my board if I want to take notes. And I think Zoom is on. Let me see. Maybe not.
It's on, Becca. We got Amanda and Melissa here.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I don't know if I'll be able to answer any questions via Zoom, but if you want to ask questions, will it let them just ask questions? Or are they muted?
They can unmute.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna try something real quick. So let me join the meeting I'm already in. No. Cancel. All right, I'm just gonna let Zoom go. Hopefully it works out. Okay, so CMAs, how to value a property, comparative market analysis. We'll start with doing one live. This one's my favorite. It's one of my rentals. I do it all the time because it's easy, but not too easy. And then if we have time, we'll get into harder ones. Actually, I'll write it on the board so you can take notes. So how appraisers value a property is based off of the age of a home, the square footage, the location, and the condition. And as agents, our job is to take that and then make adjustments according to what buyers look like or look for. So for age, I try to do plus or minus 5 years if we're talking about a house that was built in the last 10 to 20 years. So I'll write that 5 plus or minus. Square footage, 500 square feet plus or minus. Location, I try to do the same subdivision if at all possible, but if there's not enough comparables, I'll go out, out, out. Some cities I'll actually do the whole city because the whole city is fairly comparable to each other. Other cities I won't. And that one kind of comes from learning the areas. But from an appraisal standpoint, they'll do within a mile. So they start at a mile, but sometimes you can't get enough comps, or the mile takes you into another city. So then it skews your value. And then condition, buyers value condition way more than appraisers do. So a buyer will pay more for a home that's completely renovated than what an appraiser will value it for. So that's where your skill set on pricing comes in because an appraiser will say, yeah, it's worth 500, and a buyer's like, I'm not paying 500 for that house. I'll pay 400 for it because it's a piece of crap. So that's one of those, it's not straight, hard and fast. So we'll start there. So if the house was built in the 1950s, I'll do 10 years from 1940s to 1960s. And I do more of a stylistic change. So when styles change, that's when I'll change the floor plan. If I was doing a house built in the 1910s, I'd probably go up to 1930 because they're all fairly similar. So we'll start with, and an appraiser will only do sold comps. As a realtor, I'll use under contract and active because that kind of tells me the direction that the market's going. So I start with all of it, active, backup, under contract, sold. And then our subject property, actually, let me pull up the subject so you can get an idea. So you can get the data for your subject property on the county records, or you can get it from a previous listing. So I try to do previous listing first because it usually has pictures. So when you're on the MLS search, I went too far. You can scroll down to house number and street address. So this one is 799 and the street is 1875. And if you have nothing marked, it'll pull up everything. So you see I have 2 matches, and then I can come pull it up and I can see when it sold last, and that's the one I'll use. So this is the subject that we're going to talk about today. It is $14.95 on the square footage, 3 beds, 2 baths, has a half bath, was built in 2016 or 2006, as a 0.13 lot. So those are kind of the core things I look at. And then when I'm pricing, I'll also look at the tax ID and go look at the county records to see. So I just did tax ID, county links, appraisal info, because this will tell me if the square footage is more or less, because sometimes you'll see a previous listing and it'll be wrong. When you list a house, you can use county records for the square footage. You can use a building plan, or you can use a previous appraisal. So those are the 3 sources. Never use the seller's measurement. If the seller's like, I measured it and I think it's this, have the seller pay for an appraisal because you could mess all the numbers up. So it still has the correct. It doesn't have the right bedroom count, but that's fine. Has the right bathroom count. So looks great. So now we'll go back to the MLS. And we'll go back to active, under contract, sold. So we'll start with the mile like an appraiser would, just to see what we get. So sorry, I did that too fast. Let me go back. Hide map. Okay, so I'm over here, active, under contract, sold, view map. There's a circle button, radius. I'll do a mile, and then I'll type in the address. Okay, so this gives me a mile, and that gives me a lot of comps. The reason I like this house when I do this class is it's right on the border of Saratoga and Lehigh. So this is the house here, right here. And this whole subdivision is Saratoga Springs. So from a buyer perspective, they would pay more to live in Lehigh than they would to live in Saratoga. But from an appraisal perspective, they don't care. So this is where your adjustment on location is important. So I probably won't use any of these comps when I'm actually pricing it. And when you're talking to the appraiser to help justify your value, it's helpful to have those conversations. Like this one's on the border, but people prefer Lehigh, and that stuff you just kind of learn after showing houses for a really long time, is where people are like, I want to be in Highland, but if I can't be in Highland, I'll do American Fork. Now you know they'll pay more for Highland. So we'll start with that, and then we'll keep refining. So hide the map. I have 52. I can't see. 92, that's insane. That's a lot. So now I'm gonna go make the adjustments for square footage, age, because I have location. So I'll scroll down, and right now I have the full year, last 12 months. An appraiser can use even further than 12 months, but I like to kind of stay in the same market cycle. And if I can, I actually like to be closer to now, but we'll start here. So now I'm scrolling down to year built. So the subject is 2006. So I'll do 2000 to 2010, because stylistically, that's the style of the house. If they had done it in 2010 and it looked more like a 2015 house, then I'd probably do like 2009 to 2018-ish. So that should help us. Yeah, they give us 44, and then square footage. So the subject was 1498, I think. So I'll do 1200 to 1,600. Yeah, nah, I'll start higher. I'll do to 2,000 just to show you, because I'm gonna have to make adjustments and take those bigger houses out because it feels a lot different. But for now, we'll start. So that gives us 25. So we have the age, the square footage, location, and then condition. So 25 is a good place to start. So we'll look at the comps. So I just went view, results, agent full report. So you'll actually, let me go back and show you my point earlier. So back to viewing results. So brief format gives you kind of a quick overview so you can see what the list was. And I've changed mine so I can see my sold versus my list when I'm looking at it. You can come add stuff over here by doing that. But it has the square footage, bedroom, bathroom count, days on market, address, and the city. And you can see just by a quick look that the Saratoga comps are the lower of the comps than the Lehigh, which is showing you the theory that people pay more for Lehigh than Saratoga. And you can filter it by list price. So you can have most expensive to least expensive, just kind of depends on what you want. So I'll leave the Loch Lomond in for now, just to show you a condition difference, because the builder who did Loch Lomond was not the same builder who did whatever the subdivision's called. So the style is also very different. So on paper, this one sold for $435, 1,200 square feet, 3 beds, 2 baths, built in 2001, A-frame, 0.13, so same lot size, all on one level. And all on one level has a broader buyer appeal than a 2-story because anyone could buy it. People who can't do stairs, who have more money, retirees. Where a 2-story usually is younger people who can handle stairs. So I try not to compare stylistically this floor plan to a 2-story. So I will unselect all of them, and then I'll go through and personally select the ones I like for it. So this is a 2-story in Loch Lomond, listed for $465, sold for $431. We're getting closer. It's a little smaller than the subject. 1322, 3 beds, 1.5. A little bit smaller lot. And then I'll look at the pictures just to see how it compares. And I don't have pictures of the subject, but the subject is original, has new paint and carpet, but the cabinets are the same, the tile's the same. This has a 2-car garage or a 1-car garage versus a 2-car. This is one of those that to an appraiser, the value of a 2-car garage is $5,000 per bay, but to a buyer, they're not buying a house with a 1-car garage versus a 2-car garage. Welcome. So this is one of those when you're comparing, your goal, if this were your subject, would be to find other 1-car garage comps. Because if you compare it to a 2-car garage, a 2-car garage house is going to sell for a lot more than a 1-car garage. And from an appraisal standpoint, it doesn't make sense. But from a buyer demand standpoint, it makes lots of sense.
Did you say you didn't want to show them Saratoga Springs?
I don't, but I'm showing them why. Yeah. Yeah, so if I were doing this for myself, I probably would have gone and just drawn Saratoga out, but just so you guys can kind of see why I've kicked it out, because it's just totally different styles. Actually, let me go see if I can find photos of the house because it was a rental, or it is a rental. And so it was on Zillow recently. So we'll see if it still shows up. It does, yay. Okay, so here's what the subject looks like. So it's has a front office, has a family room. That's the laundry. That's the kitchen dining. So it has naughty alder, which is not currently in style. Has tile, also not in style. Green countertops, half bath, bedrooms. Has a owner suite with a bigger closet and a bathroom with 2 sinks. Tubs around, and then a yard that's fenced. So that's what our subject looks like. And look, Zillow says it's worth $484. So we're going to see if Zillow's right today. Okay, so back to 2006. Okay, so short sales, always throw short sales out when you're doing comparables because that's a distressed sell. Bank owned, foreclosure, anything like that, I wouldn't use them because the motivation of the seller is different different than regular market. Oh my gosh. Okay, so still skipping through all these guys. All right, here's our first one in Lehigh. Listed for $499, sold for $479. It's bigger than subject. Actually, did I sell this house last year? I did sell this house last year. 3 beds, 2 baths, and it's a Rambler. So stylistically, it actually looks like a 90s Rambler, even though it was built in 2002, I think. So I probably wouldn't use this as a comp for the subject because the style looks so different from the subject. This one was actually wild. Investor bought it for like 5 something in 2022. My clients got for like 480. It was great. But yeah, so I wouldn't use this as a comp for the subject just because even though it was built in 2002, it doesn't look like a house that was built in 2002. Like it looks like a 90s. And this is a split entry, so I'm not gonna use that either. So you walk up the stairs and then it splits. Split entries usually sell for less than the same comparable of a Rambler or a 2-story. So you can sort it by floor plan if you want, but when I first start, I like to start broad and get smaller because you're trusting people to list the house correctly. So sometimes people will list a Rambler or a 2-story as a Rambler, and then it throws off all your comps. So still skipping through all these guys. That one's the same subdivision, but it's a tri-level. And I would just recommend doing lots and lots of CMAs. Like, no, split levels when you walk into the front door and it splits. So you go upstairs or down. Tri-level, you walk into the family room and then the house splits sideways and you go up to bedrooms and down. But you have like a front room. Yeah. Yep. So from a hierarchy of housing, Ramblers have the best resale value because they have the broadest appeal. Then 2-stories, because you walk in, have living space. Then tri-levels, where you walk into family room, kitchen, and have the splits. And then split entry has the worst. So if I were doing a split entry, I would only comp it with split entries. I wouldn't even attempt to make adjustments. But appraisers do. I had a tri-level that an appraiser comped with a Rambler, which gave my property a lot more value than consumers did. So we took it, but not my favorite. Actually, I'll show you what tri-level looks like. This is a short sell, doesn't count. So front door, you walk in, you can see the front door is kind of here. You have the family room, kitchen, dining, and then maybe we'll see the stairs. Yeah, so this is the front door. There's the stairs that go up, there's the stairs that go down. And then a tri-level can have 4 levels as well. Like it can go down to the basement. All right, this is taking forever. So I'm gonna go cheat just to make it faster. So I'll go over here to styles and I'll do a 2-story. And that gave us 13. And then I'm gonna come and just do Lehigh and drop all of those Saratoga ones. That did not drop them. Oh, maybe the 2-story dropped them all. No, that did not do it. All right, fine. I'll go manually pick Lehigh. Okay, so this is the best thing ever. This is the same exact floor plan of the subject property. So listed for 525, sold for 525, 1550, so slightly bigger on the square footage. 3 beds, 2.5 baths, built 2006, slightly bigger lot. So the builder neighborhoods are nice when the builder builds lots, because then you have like the same floor plan. Don't always get them, but sometimes you do. So compared to the subject, paint, carpet, fireplace has been painted, cabinet or kitchen's still the same, but it has an island instead of the U-shaped peninsula. Has the laundry in the same spot, has the office. This one doesn't have a double sink. And yeah, and then the big one is this one has this nice covered patio. So this is one of those, how do you make an adjustment for that? To a buyer, they might care or they might not. An appraiser will give you almost no value. So helpful, but not. And then this one is also the same floor plan, So it was listed for 535, sold for 545, paid 13,000 in concessions. So I imagine they just raised the purchase price to cover concessions. So it didn't really make the value more valuable. And when appraisers do this, they subtract out concessions. So they'll say this house is worth 545 minus the 13,000, that's the value when they're using it as a comp. So same 3 beds, 2.5 baths, 1,500 square feet. You can, just when you're looking at how they do it versus how we do it. Because the CMA value also, there's a marketing value around the price you do. So sometimes I'll do a different price just for the marketing value, even though the market value, like the market value says X, marketing value says Y. But we'll get into that if there's time. So this house is like kitty corner from the subject. It has a bigger lot. It has LVP and two-tone paint. And the fireplace has been changed slightly because the other ones had like stone. And then it has a little bit of a bump out, so the dining and kitchen's a little bit bigger. And then doesn't have that hangover. But so this is the subject right here, and this is this comp, bigger lot on the side of a cul-de-sac. And then this one's a Rambler, so that's not a 2-story. That's not a 2-story. This agent should be fired. We're not gonna look at who it is. I'm kidding. But that's why that one sold for quite a bit more. So skip them. This one's now getting bigger at 1915. So appraisers like it when you have an inferior home that's not as great as your subject and a superior home that's greater than your subject, because then you've bracketed it properly and then you can find your value between the two. And it's also helpful for your sellers to see that, because your seller might be like, okay, they sold for 545, so I want to list for 585. Just made that number up. So then you can have this one to say, well, this one sold for 572 and it's bigger at 1915, 3 beds, 2 baths. And price per square foot is not a helpful measurement. Don't use it. It's only helpful if you have the exact same house. You'll know which one had more upgrades. That's it. But it's one that people like to talk about a lot. So this one has a bigger lot, has in the back of a cul-de-sac, has upgraded kitchen. Still has the same tile. So more upgraded than the subject. So this one's a great one as your top end. So I'll use those 3. Not using you. Okay. So now to kind of see them side by side, you can come click value full and go to CMA report.
That's a trustee sale.
Trustee just means someone possibly passed away and their family selling it, or the property is owned in a trust. Not always. I mean, they usually sell for less if the condition merits it. So like if it hasn't been updated in 20, 80 years, yes. Personally, if I have a trustee sale, I don't tell anyone on the MLS. Like you could, but I don't think it's helpful because it just tells people there's potential negotiation room. Did I click the wrong one? I think I did. Not you. Yes, I clicked the wrong one. One moment.
I guess you're looking at that and answer the question.
Yes.
So to buy these properties, you just kind of did a regular search.
Uh-huh.
With a radius or something.
Yeah, so I started with a radius. And then I went and edited it accordingly to how I felt / market knowledge. What? Yeah. Yep. All right, fine. I'll just remove it. Okay, so here's my 3 comparables. Here's my subject. So you can come in and you can add a sample template. So back in the day, they used to give us the actual adjustments for this. They took it away because it's so subjective from neighborhood to neighborhood. But this is super helpful because I've already found really good comps for the house. So now I'll come in and I'll type in what it has. So this one has 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, which a full bath means it has a tub, a sink, and a toilet. A third bath, 3/4, means it has a shower, a sink, and a toilet. And then a half bath is a half bath. So in the grand scheme, from an appraisal standpoint, a shower versus a tub get the same value. But from a consumer standpoint, they might care that the house has multiple tubs. All right, so I'm going to go back and look at previous listing, 811 and 684 for my square footage. And so this is another, oh, not you. Oh my gosh, we'll get this done. 811, 684. Okay, so this is also very critical because above grade square footage to an appraiser is a lot more valuable than below grade, which means below the dirt. And below grade is considered, like, even though we have daylight over here and we're above grade in these windows, this basement is still considered below grade because it's below the grade of the street at one spot. So that one gets you in a lot of fights later. Not really, but it can, especially with the tri-levels, because some of their levels walk out, like their first basement level actually walks out to a flat space, but it's still considered below grade because of where the front yard hits it. Okay, so then basement finished. This doesn't have a basement. And then year built, 2006, garage, 2, no carport, and 0.13. So this gives my value at 547.
It's adjusted automatic.
Yeah. So now you have to take it and decide if that's correct or not. So I know that these two are the exact same house. So it's probably not gonna, I mean, maybe, but this one's condition is a lot better than mine. And it's pulling it up because this one is pulling its value up. Like if I took this one out, it would adjust this. So this lives and dies by how good your comps are. So I'm actually going to pull this one out just to show you what it does. So that pulled it out and it dropped it 10,000 to 535. So you want to feel comfortable in your comps before you do that. And I actually feel like that would be pretty accurate if I were to go to sell it today. So now we'll talk about marketing a house based off of your CMA. So you can have a ton. From an appraisal standpoint, they really look at 3 major comps. They'll have more on there, but they give bigger weight to the properties. And so when I'm pricing a house, if I can have 2, like, this is not fair that I have 2. I never have 2. I've done this one a few times, so I know these were happening this year. But if I didn't have 2 great comps, I'd rather have a couple to kind of balance it out. But when it's the same floor plan, it's easier. 3 to 5 is kind of what I'm looking for. Yeah. Yeah. But if it's the same floor plan with all the same finishes, and then you start getting into upgrade issues, like that last comp had a new kitchen where the rest of them didn't. So then it's like, well, what's the value of a kitchen? At this point, not much, because the kitchen's still functioning and working well. But when you go to a house that was built in the 60s and the kitchen hasn't been updated and every other comp has been updated, now the value of the kitchen is much more than the original version. And we'll do an older house just for fun. Okay, so now we're going to pretend we're going to price the house. So if I were to sell the house today, so I just met with the seller, we're ready to sell, I would say, this is my recommendation. The range value is 525 to 545. Based off of what you want, then I give recommendations on what repairs to do. So if they're like, I want to list it for 550, I'd be like, great, you have to do all new flooring, all new paint, and try and get it to look as much like the third house as possible. But for value, if it's worth 535, redoing a kitchen to get 550 in value is not worth it. because they're going to spend more than that getting the kitchen done. So they might get value by doing the kitchen countertop because that's going to be a couple grand and that'll make it show better. To an appraiser, they don't care, but to a buyer, they might be like, okay. Or painting cabinets is another affordable way to get an updated look. And knotty alders, they fill in the knots and then paint it and it looks great. But because all my comps are fairly original, I probably wouldn't. So then, and this is, I'm leaving appraisal land and going to realtor land. This is how buyers look at a house. So buyers will say, I'm looking for all the homes, single family homes in Lehigh. Because they're not gonna be like, I want to be in this corner of Lehigh. I mean, occasionally you have higher value areas where they are looking specific, but for Lehigh itself, there is a value difference between east side versus west side. But I'll leave just Lehigh for now. And we'll say their budget is up to 550. So they have 36 homes to look at. So where does my subject property fall in this category? And we're going to look at everything from like old 1900s house up to maybe new construction. So I'll look at this first and be like, okay, this guy is old, obviously. At 354, 1,300 square feet, 3 beds, 2 baths. So comparable size, bedroom, bathroom count, quite a bit cheaper than what I was thinking. I'll do this. Not a single family home. Okay, this one's actually a great one to compare. So they're listed at 429, 1,400 square feet, 2 beds, 1 or 2 baths, built in 2020. It's a split by, has an HOA of 165. So there's a lot of like very similar things to my subject and a lot of things that are different. It's newer than my subject, but the big thing is it's a 2-bedroom. And a 2-bedroom, from an appraisal standpoint, going from a 4-bedroom to a 5-bedroom is like $500. There's almost no value for that bedroom. But going from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom is like a $30,000 value because your buyer pool changes. Because people who can live in a 2-bedroom and handle stairs is a pretty small group. It's going to be like newlywed, single people, and people who have roommates but still want office, like they're not even going to buy it. So a 2-bedroom, if I were comping a 2-bedroom, I would actually just find comps that had 2 bedrooms. Like I wouldn't even try to make an adjustment for that 3rd bedroom because it's just too hard. So not comparable, and that HOA really cuts into affordability, which is why that house is quite a bit less. Oh, and it's on a shared driveway. So you have that guy and then the neighbor there. And so these shared driveway houses, I try to only comp with themselves as well. So then I kind of go through and say, would my client or would a buyer buy my property or this property? And that's kind of how I find value. So this one's a manufactured home, so I'm going to skip it. Same on that shared drive. Okay, so now we're getting into maybe. So 479, 1,500 square feet, 3 beds, 1 full, 2 halves, built in 56, bigger lot size, 1-car garage. So I'd look at it and see, it looks like it has some nice updates. Pink bathroom, bigger lot. So maybe not. This one, 485. Now it's bigger than my subject at 2,100 square feet, 4 beds, 3 baths, built in 2002, small lot, 0.10, HOA is 145. So now I try to look at that and say, would you buy this over that? Maybe. And I'm trying to get to a point where it's like, absolutely, they would pay more for this house than the subject. Getting closer, 1,700 square feet, 4 beds. Oh, I think this is Busy Road. Tri-level, fairly original. Split entry. I showed that house. It's been on forever. 499,000 square feet, 3 beds, 1 bath. Oh, and a 1 bath is the same thing. Like buyers just won't buy a house that has 1 bathroom versus making the adjustment because a half bath is worth 2,500. A full bath is worth 5,000 and buyers won't buy the house. Like it's not, if I price this house for 5,000 less than a home with 2 bathrooms, They're just not interested. So that's where your skill set comes in when you're comping your houses, to make sure that you know what features your house has, to make sure that you're capturing the correct crowd. Yeah, 5,000 on an appraisal. To a buyer, way different. Like you'll have a bunch like you'll see a bunch of townhomes that don't have the half bath on the main that always sell for like 25,000 less than the homes that have the half bath on the main. And it's because stylistically the house just changes when you have the half bath on the main. And you usually are getting a second time home buyer who has experienced life without storage, or has experienced, my friends are over, but they have to go use my bathroom upstairs. So they kind of cut out houses that don't have the half bath and they have more budget. So it's on paper, 2,500 bucks. Yeah. Yeah. So like if your client's shopping as a buyer, and this is a great way to advise your clients as well. If they're shopping and they're like, I like these two houses and one has a half bath and everything else is comparable, I would guide them to the half bath because resale value will be way better than without it. So I'm not going to use that one. Built in 93, 499. That's little. 1,100 square feet, 3 beds. Nicely updated. I might buy this one over my subject. So even though my comps are saying 535, I might buy this one instead. Maybe not. Sometimes aerial photos are not helpful for your listing. So like look at them as a buyer. Be like, if I saw that, would I come see the house? I probably wouldn't, but you know. All right. HOAs make a big difference. So if I have an HOA or don't, I usually don't use those. 499. Okay. So kind of, I still haven't found one that I'm like, absolutely, that's better. Want to find one that's absolutely better. Ooh, that's cute. 1,900. This one's actually pretty good. So it has 5 bedrooms, 1,900 square feet, 4 beds, 2.5 baths. A little bit older. Price at 514. Very original. I don't know. Would you buy that one over the subject? Still not there yet? Amy's face. It was really popular. Okay, now we're getting into new construction, 514, and new construction is making comping everything difficult. So from an appraisal standpoint, they'll use new construction as a comp. A buyer will buy new construction, but they'll pay the premium for new versus old. So I just don't use them as comps, but also know that they are competition when you are going to sell. So a buyer is going to look at this and say, well, I can have this 1,500, 19, 15, whatever, 3 beds, 3 baths, 0.06 on the lot, very small. But it's brand new, and then you have all the incentives. Yes. Yep.
I know you say that it's not necessarily apples to apples on
Yeah.
comparables, but cost wise, right?
Yeah. So
Offering, 7%, whatever.
yeah. So the appraiser will take their purchase price and subtract that out, and that's the value on the appraisal. So it is comparable, but to a buyer, it's like my payment on this house is 3 grand. My payment on your house is 3,500. I like your house more, but I'm going to go buy new construction for the lower payment. So it's very difficult to compete with that. But you have to be aware of what your competition looks like, because buyers aren't like, I'm only looking for houses within 5 years of 2006 with only within a mile. Like, not how buyers shop. Okay, so I'm getting bored. So the next step I do from this is I go to under contracts, because these guys have actually gotten an accepted contract. So they're a little more accurate, because as we all know, you can list however you want, but we know these guys have all been listed more recently than some of the sold comps. And we can kind of see where-ish they went under contract. Okay, so this guy was listed for, oh my gosh, I cannot see. I should get glasses. 459, smaller than subject, 3 beds, 1 bath. For 1900 square feet, 4 beds, 2 full baths, 1 with bathroom, but in 64, but no garage. Garage is another one. Like, if you don't have a garage, do not comp your house with a garage, because the value difference is so much more than what an appraiser values at. And actually, I'll show you that on when we actually look at the appraisal, because it's baffling.
Same with the number of, like, you have 2-car versus
Uh-huh.
3-car.
Oh yeah, there's a huge value difference once you go from 2 to 3. It kind of depends. Like Saratoga Springs, it's worth more than like Orem. If you have a 3rd-car garage, your house is so much bigger that it no longer compares to the homes with 2-car garages. But Saratoga is a great one because there's so many 2-car garage houses versus 3-car. And yeah, it's pretty close to that. But
You said 50?
Yeah.
So it's a good investment to get a buyer building if you want.
yes, 100%. Especially the trajectory of where we're going. Because like back in the 90s, it was a nice to have. By 2000, it was like, why don't you have it? Now it's like, I'm not buying your house without a 3rd-car garage. So yes, from a resale perspective, absolutely, it's worth it. But you'll notice all my comps are newer construction, which is great because of all those lovely incentives. Okay. This is good. Start at 555, 524. So this cool history button should be your best friend. I use it all the time. So you can see what's happened with the house. You can see it was listed, went under contract with a time clause, came back pretty quick, drop price, and it went under contract. Let's see, they dropped the price on the 13th and it went under contract on the 17th. So with that knowledge, we can assume it's pretty close to list price. Probably not perfect, but pretty close. If they dropped the price in September and went under contract in October, it's probably less than list price, but it kind of gives you an idea. You can call the agent if you're like, hey, I'm comping a house in this area. Did you go for contract value or list price? Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't. Kind of depends on the agent. Or if they think it's going to fall out of contract, they might not tell you at all. But it helps you when you're pricing. You're like, these are the guys who sold. These are the guys who are currently pending that your buyer could have seen. And then you want to look like a better deal than everything currently on the market. So this guy, I think, probably pretty close to 525. So we know it's older than the subject. It's a tri-level. And I think it had 1 more bedroom. Yes. Oh, it had 2 more bedrooms. So bedrooms, we kind of talked about this. So 4 bedrooms is kind of the sweet spot on houses. Once you go from 4 to 5, the value difference isn't much more, especially if the 5th bedroom is taking away from the main living space of the house. But once you go from 2 to 3, it's a huge value difference. So when clients are like, how should I finish my basement? If they already have 4 bedrooms, I'm more inclined to say do bigger living space. If you need the bedroom, totally do it, but you're not getting that same $5,000 value for that bedroom because buyers don't care. And once you get to 6 or 7 bedrooms, they're like, I don't want this house. Unless you can remodel it, unless you're in Highland, then it's different. Okay, 529. I feel like that one's better. That one's cute. 537. 539. Okay. So I still feel pretty good. So based off of comps, it says it's worth 535. Based off of what's currently under contract and what's active, I'd probably price it closer to 525 or potentially 519 because I want to look like a good deal right now because average days on market are so long that buyers have a lot to pick from. And I'm having buyers see a house and come back a month later to write an offer. And keeping a house show ready for 60 days is the worst part of selling your house. So for me, and this is my house, like I personally would price my house 10,000 less or 15,000 less to get all the buyers and get it bid or negotiate better closing costs for myself or my seller. But it kind of depends from a strategy standpoint. And then I was kind of talking about how marketing price. So we're still doing better. Zillow says it's only worth 484. And the reason Zillow has it quite a bit less, let me see if is Zillow's comps for the house aren't great. So first we have this guy who's reported at a 0. So it's like skewing it all. And then comp 2 and 4 are in Saratoga Springs. And then these guys are actually nicer houses than the subject. So there's no really good comps, even though the same floor plan sold across the street and like down and over a little bit. Zillow didn't use any of those comps. So it's fun to play with. And sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's really bad. So in this case, if you listed it for the Zillow price, you'd be way off. So I probably would list it for 519. And the reason is when people are searching for houses for sale on price, they come to this site, they come to homes.com, Realtor, all of them. And you can type in a number or you can do a drop down, but people don't usually, or people usually do this. Ooh, nope, 550. So 5 million, I don't know, there might be a $5 million house in Lehigh. So that's usually how people search. So a 9, we've all been taught mentally teaches you it's a good deal. I feel like you're gonna say something. No? Okay, yeah. Oh, so we've all shopped at Walmart and Walmart has taught us that if it ends in a 9, it's a good deal.
Oh, yeah.
So mentally, we see a 9 and we're like, oh, it's a good deal. But I only use that on a house that I want it to look like a good deal. If I want a house, like if my comp were 545, I might list it at 550 because now I get the double bracket of people searching from 500 to 550 and searching from 550 to 600. So it kind of depends where my comps come in and the story I want to tell. So this house, it's older. The HVAC's been replaced, the water heater's been replaced, the roof is coming up. So I probably would want to tell a story that it's a good deal. So I'd end with a 9. But if it was all brand new, 5 years old, the yard was done, the landscaping, the fence, and I'm competing with a builder, I might price it still below the builder because people will pay premium for a builder. But use all of that as marketing, be like, look, what you don't have to spend. But buyers don't realize how expensive that stuff is. And from an appraisal standpoint, they give you almost no value. And a good way to think about it is if it added value to a house, a builder would do it. So when your clients are like, should I finish a basement? Do builders finish basements? Nope. Because it adds no real value. Like the cost that it costs you to finish the basement is about the value that it adds, if you're lucky. Sometimes it doesn't even do that. And same with landscaping. Like the only reason builders do landscaping in the front yard is because they have to and the city requires it, not because they want to add value. If they can get away from it, they will. So I'm going to show you an appraisal and show you how to read it. This is a recent closing, and it's a good one because actually I'll show you what it looks like. Because it was a condition-wise, the house wasn't as nice as other properties, and the value difference the appraiser gave was like nothing. Here she is. Okay, so this is the subject. My client is listed for 475. We got it under contract for 480, 80 even. So what we did is we asked for the closing costs and then we raised the purchase price to cover some of it. After inspection, we found out that, well, actually we knew kind of going in that the furnace was old, the AC was old, and the water heater was old. So we raised the purchase price because we knew we had enough value in comps, and then the seller paid to replace all of that. So the buyer paid for it by raising the purchase price, but by financing it into instead of paying for it out of pocket, their money ahead. So that's why it looks like this. And then the seller paid $14,000 in concessions. And we could only do that because there was another comp, same house, almost the same condition, that sold for, I think it was $495. I'll show you when we get there. But this is what the subject looks like. It has new fresh paint carpet, original kitchen, original bathrooms. And paint and carpet are usually the best return on investment when it comes to selling houses. Beyond that, it's very case by case. So that's the subject. And this is its appraisal. Nope. Here she is. Okay, so here's all the stuff. The important part of the appraisal is not on this page. Oh my gosh, where is it? There it is. Oh, okay. So the appraiser does a lot more adjustments than we ever do. So they have days on market, when it's listed, when it went under contract, all the history behind it. Arm's length means no one's related to each other. How many addendums it has, what the seller has to do by the contract, seller paid closing costs. And then it goes into like what type of neighborhood it is, how much is built out, how stable the market is, if it's growing, rapid, stable, slow. Like they do so much market research because they're the eyes for the bank to say this is what's happening in the neighborhood.
I think now. Oh,
It's stable from a technical standpoint. It feels ridiculous, but from a supply and demand standpoint, it's actually very stable. Slower areas like Eagle Mountain is a little slower. Magna is a little slower, kind of those outskirt areas, but they're still not bad. Okay, so here's the comparables. So we have our subject here. We have our comparable 1, 2, 3, and the range. So it has like I love when, because you don't always get the appraisal. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I love it when my clients give it to me and I go in and I research it and try and see where the adjustments are being made. And this one's really fun. So above grade square footage, gross living area, and then below grade square footage, you can see they value them differently. Functional utility average, this is talking about heating and cooling. So you can see we have a central air conditioner. This house had an evaporator, so they gave, or a swamp cooler. So they gave us a value of $3,000 for having an AC. You can't even put an AC in for $3,000, but a buyer is this is less important. Like 10 years ago, it was really important. Buyers would not buy a house that had an AC versus a swamp cooler. Now they've gotten fairly affordable, so it's not as big of a deal. But what the appraiser does is he makes adjustments and says, if this house had a central air conditioner, we'd add $3,000 in value. This is the landscaping one that I thought was hilarious. So the subject had partial landscaping. So the house was fully fenced. The grass in the backyard was dying. The sprinkler system wasn't great. And the value difference was $3,500. So for your seller who's like, should I finish my landscaping? The value difference on this appraisal says no. Yes.
basement and finished.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so this is square footage. Oh my gosh, I'll come closer. And then 929 was finished. So this had a laundry room that was unfinished, and then it had a little mechanical room. And then it had 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. And then this one had 1,032 square footage, so slightly smaller, but it was more finished square footage. So they made no adjustment for it. Where this one's a little bit bigger at 1,134. And 1,077 was finished with 1 bedroom, or that's a family room, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. So the adjustment here was because we don't have it, they're taking away 4,400 for this house, which again, we're going like, that's ridiculous. Like if your seller's like, oh, should I finish a bedroom? It's going to cost them more than $4,000 to finish a bedroom. So they're probably, if it goes from a 3 to a 4, I would, but if it was like a 4 to a 5, I would not. And this one, yes.
All the square footage in the basement.
Yeah.
SFIN is.
Yeah.
Square footage.
Finished. Yep. And yep. And then it breaks it out to what it is. And then up here, it has 6 total rooms, 3 total bedrooms, 1 bathroom. And they're counting the kitchen, the family room, the bedrooms, the bathroom. It's the 6 total for that house. So this only has 2 bedrooms up, where my subject had 1 bedroom up, and they didn't make an adjustment for it. Where that actually changes the style of the house, because if you only have 2 bedrooms up, then the bedrooms upstairs are probably bigger. But if someone has little kids, they want to have all 3 on the same level. So they might prefer 3 bedrooms up versus 2. But yeah, and then it has like quality of construction, Q4, 8 actual age. This one I love. So this is one where the age of the house matters to the buyer and not to the appraiser, because the age of this house is 44 years old. This one's 42, this one's 61, and this one's 53. And he gave no value difference for a house that's almost 20 years older. Yeah. I had one that it was really hard to comp because it was an acre and a half in Nephi and the subject was built in 1920. The appraiser comped it to a house built in 1975 and the value difference was $500 per year. So it was like $15,000. I'm like, that's a different buyer buying a 1900s farmhouse versus a 1970s farmhouse. Like, not the same. But appraisers have to come up with some objective measurement because they have to tell the bank why the value is where it is. But it was wild. So then we have double pane windows. They all had it. This is the garage conversation. So we have one carport, one driveway. Same with this one. So this one had a 2-car, 2 driveway, and it gave us $12,000. Like you couldn't finish a garage for $12,000. But when we go look at what the house actually sold for, it sold for $520, where my subject sold for $495 with all the mechanicals. So driveway parking, yeah. So that was saying 2-car garage, 2 driveway, 1-car garage, 1 door driveway, 4,000. So what I like to do when I'm like playing around with this is actually go pull up my comps to see what they're looking at. So I just command copied. I know, but the MLS is great and it'll filter it all out. So you go to search MLS number and then command paste. Occasionally you'll get one that's like, what's a really old MLS number, but it's easy to pull out. But see, it cut all of that out and found my 3 MLSs. I know, isn't that nice? Okay, now I'll get it to load. A few times, yeah. Yeah, I love digging into like the why behind all of it. So then I can better be like, this is why. Like it doesn't make sense to, because what an appraiser does versus what we do versus what consumers want is like a pretty dance that we all have to work around. Okay, so here's my 3. And he gave, actually, I think he said it. Anyway, so here's where the value is, 469 on that date of the appraisal. So when you're like looking for the value, come to page 2, that's where the appraisal value will be. And you'll notice it's often the contract price because they're not trying to establish value. They're just trying to say, yes, your investment is okay. So if your appraisal comes in higher than contract, your client got a really good deal because the appraiser can't make enough adjustments to get it to where your client's contract is. So those always make me feel good. But yeah, so he's like, yep, it's worth what you wanted. And that was with all of our crazy shenanigans. So no, never. You don't have to share your appraisal with the seller. I wouldn't recommend sharing it. As a buyer's agent, I just say appraisal came in fine, no conditions, we moved on. And actually this one had conditions, which was obnoxious because it was a conventional loan, but they're the ones giving the money. So we do what they want, which was we had to tape up a window. So that was fun. Okay, so here's our subject. So, or not our subject. Here's our first comp. And this one was weighted the highest because it was in the same subdivision and it was very similar floor plan. 2,000 square feet, 2,064, 3 beds, 1 full, 1 with a shower, built in 1983. Woo, flip that. And they paid $489,530 for it. And this is what it looks like. Paint, carpet, kitchen. This is the original kitchen, but it's better maintained than my property was. Mine also had, or the subject, but the tile floor has been updated from the original. And then it only had the 2 bedrooms up. So you can see like this bedroom's quite a bit bigger than the subject. So a buyer cares, appraiser doesn't. And then the shower's been updated. If you remember the subject, the shower was the original. And then the basement had a fireplace, washer and dryer, landscaping. So this one got additional value for the landscaping, $3,500. So then my next one sold for $493, 1950, 3 beds, 1 full, 1 half, basement's fully finished, has a 1-car garage. What year was this one? This one was built in 72. So I can't remember my subject. I think it was 80 something. Yeah, 83. So no value difference for the build. Original cabinets, updated flooring. The floor is the weirdest. That's a tight kitchen. Yeah. And then my last one that he had to make the most adjustments for was this one. Had a detached 2-car garage, sold for $520. It's a little bit bigger, but I don't think he gave any adjustment for square footage. I'll have to look. 4 beds, 2 baths. Mine had 4 beds. Did I have one in the basement? Now I'm questioning myself. Yes, it did. Okay, so mine had 4 beds, 1 full, 1 with a shower. Built in 81. Okay. But if we look back at the appraisal, they made the adjustment for a little bit more in concessions. So 9,000, 14,000. So he took that off. He gave $10,000 for our subject being bigger than that one's on the main. That's actually a pretty good difference. 10,000 for almost 100 square feet. That's wild. But he took off 4,000 for, well, this one is it. Sorry, take it back. He gave no value. 4,000, took away 12,000 for the garage, 3,500 for the covered patio, 1,500 for the fireplace. So if your client's like, should I remove my fireplace? Because I hate it. For value perspective, it actually adds value. So I would leave it unless they hate it. And then landscape difference, 3,500. And then because my subject had RV parking and this one did not, they gave it an extra $2,500 for RV parking, which is just parking on the side. So he had to, and they have rules, and I don't know the rules of how much they're allowed to adjust comparables to still be within comparable range. So this one was a pretty close adjustment. The net adjustment was 0.1. Gross adjustment was 1.3. This one, he had to make pretty big adjustments, 4.3 to 5.3, and then almost nothing, and then 4.3. And then you'll see they have additional comps of like, let me give you more data, but this is where it gets insane. Like this one sold for $594. Oh no, that's square footage. 535, 530, and 525. So like these all sold for way more. So they're comparable, but they're not valued the same. So really they weigh the first 3 the most, and really with this guy, he did the one the most. And then it has a bunch of adjustments, but it's really fun to come in and like see value differences, because like a covered porch patio, most buyers don't care that much, but it gives them an extra $2,500 on that house. Or like people really want the RV parking, so it's way more valuable than 2,500. So that's why appraisals are helpful, but also vastly different, because it's what the appraisal rules are versus what buyers want. Any questions? Yes.
You talked about solar.
No. So the best way to comp it is to find a comp that has a solar or has a swimming pool. From an appraisal standpoint, the most I've ever seen solar given is $5,000. Beyond that, appraisers really don't give value for it because consumers don't give value for it. Like consumers aren't like, I'm going to pay 50,000 more for this house because it has solar. It's more, this house is slightly nicer than this house because it has solar. Makes my payment slightly less. And same with pools. Some people are like, I'm not buying a house with a pool. And other people are like, I'm only buying a house with a pool. And it's already kind of priced into the house because that house without a pool is selling for 100,000 less. But if you had a pool, it'd be selling for more, but there's no like value on the appraisal. And that one's becoming more valuable in places like Highland and Alpine and Mapleton. But if you have a pool like Spanish Fork or Santaquin, you have no comps. And so there's no value. Detached shops is another one that's really hard because if you have a detached shop and no one else has one, there, from an appraisal standpoint, there's no value, but from a buyer standpoint, they'll pay more for that house that has a shop. So those get really hard to price. So usually you see it in the price of the house, not necessarily the comp. So a lot of times I'll be looking at a house and I'll see the price. I'm like, that's priced too high. Why? Usually it's because it has a bigger lot. Because the lot adjustments, I don't even know if he gave lot adjustments. Lot adjustments are huge on adding no value, but to a buyer, especially if you go from half acre no horse property to half acre horse property, the value difference is insane. But from an appraisal standpoint, there's no difference. So then I'll be looking at comps, be like, why is it priced here? Oh, because it has animal rights, or it has a detached shop, or has a pool. Yeah. So
What do you do for Excel? When you're doing a complex selling, it's garage.
Mhm.
What value?
Usually what I try to do is find, so in a perfect world, I'll find two houses with detached garages and say, these are your comps, because these houses both had them. They both sold for usually 100,000 more is what I see for shops. And we're talking like a big 2-door double deep. And if I can't, then I'll go do an independent appraisal on another house that had a detached and find out what the house would be worth without the shop. So like this is super common in like Eagle Mountain because there's not enough for like all of them to come in. But so I'll find the house and say if it had a shop, or if it doesn't have a shop, it's worth 700. With the shop, it sold for 850. That tells me their shop is roughly worth 850 if all other things are comparable. This is also super common with basement apartments because on an appraisal standpoint, they're worth like nothing. But to a buyer, now they can buy this house, they can qualify for more. So what I've seen, the value for an apartment is about 50,000. In this current environment, when interest rates were lower, it was worth almost nothing because buyers are like, I don't want to give up that square footage. So in a perfect world, you find a comp that has everything your house has. If not, I'll go do adjustments. And I try to get more data points to make it work. So if I'm selling a house in Highland that has a detached shop and I don't have enough data points, then I'll go independently be like, okay, if this house that had a shop that was built in the 80s sold for 800, this house without a shop sold for 700. I know roughly, even though my subject is like 90s, because I can't compare my house to this house. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, it's fun. It's an art. You have the science, which is what the appraiser gives us, and then you have the art of the adjustment based off of consumer demand. I sold a house in Holiday that had the grossest pool. So the pool actually was a negative value because the buyer was going to have to go in and redo a bunch of stuff. So that was fun. Okay, so another fun thing that the appraisal shows you is condition standards. I don't remember what page it's on. So we're good, drive around. So they show you the comps, see? So he did a good job of keeping them within, let's see, 0.18, 0.18, 0.38. Especially when you get to Salt Lake, you get value differences on major streets. So he did a good job of keeping me below 7th, but above State Street. So Utah County is less dramatic. It's getting there, but they take pictures of the subject. So when your seller's like, what are they going to do? They're there for like 15 minutes. They measure the exterior. They take a bunch of pictures. When I'm advising my seller, I tell them to get it as close to show ready as possible and don't be there and take your pets. Appraisers tell you that that's not necessary, but the happier and easier you make the appraiser's life, the better the value is going to be. Not always, but, and then they also go and take a picture of all the comps. So if your client just refinanced a house or just bought a house and people keep driving by taking pictures of their house, it's probably because their house is being used as an appraisal for someone else in the neighborhood, or their insurance company stopping by. So if they're like, someone keeps stopping by and taking pictures, or you can set them up for it. So this is how they measure. So from appraisal, they measure the exterior of the house. And for condos, they measure the interior of the house. So when you do like the Matterport and it shows your square footage is less, it's because Matterport does the interior. So get rid of that. Don't use that because appraisers use the exterior. Got all that research to have to do. Okay, here we are. Okay, so the uniform appraisal update definitions. So you have the condition rating of a house. So C1 means there's been improvements made to construction not previously occupied. So that's like new construction. C2, it's been updated. There's no deferred maintenance. C3, so this is when your client's like a flipper and they took a house from gross to beautiful, they still can't have a C1 condition because it's been occupied at some point. So the highest they can get is up to C2. And then C6 is like it's damaged, it has a bunch of deferred maintenance. And this is where actually here, C4 is where deferred maintenance starts to hurt your property value. C3 is where, and deferred maintenance, because maintenance you have to do to sell your house. So you have to update stuff as needed. And if your home gets bracketed down, which I don't think he did, I think he gave them all C4, which is funny because some of them had updated everything. Maybe it was the later ones. But this is kind of that conversation of, well, I updated the HVAC and the furnace and the water heater. That doesn't make your house worth more because we expect your house to have an HVAC, a furnace, and a water heater and a roof. You start getting upgrades when the kitchen's updated or the bathroom's updated, but you don't really get upgrades for maintenance. And then C6 is like the house can't get financing. So that's like cash buyers. And then quality of construction is also a really interesting one, especially as you get into more custom homes, because the quality of the house is valued differently. So you have Q1, which is basically brand new construction, unique floor plan, custom, like Parade of Homes style homes that are 5 million plus, like that's getting a Q1 rating. Q2 is a quality range, custom design construction by an individual or property owner, so semi-custom build. Q3 is a nice quality higher than production grade, and then production grade is it passes building code. We're great, but it's a Q4. So it's kind of fun. Yeah. So like if you, let's see, I'm trying to think of a scenario. So if you built a custom home in Highland and there's a builder subdivision 2 blocks away, the appraiser might use both, but then he'll make an adjustment based off of your home being custom versus not. But also if your custom home's awful, it might make your value worse. Because sometimes you walk through the custom homes and it's like, obviously they had no designer because this flow and floor plan makes no sense. And you see that a lot with like the bigger homes where it's like, this house is 10,000 square feet and it's sold super low because the function of the floor plan's off. So yeah, he gave us all the same. He gave them all Q4 quality and C3 condition. Let's see if the other ones had better. There you go. So this, yeah. So he gave these properties, he's like, they have better condition than the subject property. So the value difference from going from Q4 to Q3 was about $26,000. But these houses all had new kitchens and bathrooms, and you actually couldn't do a kitchen and bathroom for 26,000. You'd be close, like if you wanted to do it. So with your sellers like, should I redo my kitchen and my bathroom? The value difference from an appraisal standpoint is about 26,000 on these houses. And the sales values 35, 35, 530, 525. And my subject originally was 575. So or 475. So he could have been close. Like if he would have done kitchens and bathrooms, he probably could have sold for 530 and he would have been money ahead, but that one would have been very tight. So I don't know if I would advise someone to do that. Yeah, paint the cabinets. Yeah, paint the cabinets, do the countertop. But yeah, let's see. So if I take we'll be generous and we'll say the 535 house. And I'm not doing anything with these things like the garage or the patio or porch. And I take away, let's say you do really cheap everything, 2 bathrooms and a kitchen. We'll say 25,000. And this is you doing it yourself, like buying the cabinets, installing them. That brings your value to 410. So yeah, he'd be money ahead on that one. About 35,000, but we also get into the nuance of, well, does the other house have updated furnace, AC, water heater, all of that? And then we're back to ground zero of it was better to sell it cheap and let the buyer do that. But you have to be very strategic on your pricing to make that make sense. And here, let's compare this one so you can see. Okay, so this is the one that sold for 535. It's a little bit smaller, 900 square feet, 18. And has 1-car garage. I think I showed this one. No, I did not. So that's an IKEA kitchen, so could do that cheapish. Laundry room's nice. Yeah, so maybe. Okay. What time are we at? Oh, we're so good. It's only 10:48. Okay, so do we want to practice doing an appraisal or a CMA together? Do another one maybe? Anyone have a house they want? No, go for it.
I'm hoping to get my license tomorrow. Yes, to me.
Fantastic.
I think my first CMA, which I should probably do there tomorrow, is gonna be for my nephew, who is 19 years old and is gonna be given $1 million from a lawsuit and wants to buy a fourplex.
Okay.
What considerations would I have for a fourplex?
Let's do it. Okay, so we'll go to search multi-full. And then we'll go to Utah County.
You know, the last number of like the one I quickly sent my sister.
Okay, so we're talking, oh my gosh, what is that? So we're talking about helping him buy it and evaluating the price? Is that the conversation?
I need to justify them letting me represent him be without any experience. So I wanna do as much research as possible.
Okay,
We won't be buying for 2 months, because the money has to sit in the trust account.
okay. Okay, thanks for coming.
I need multi-family.
You go to search.
Should do full.
No, I just did search and then multi-full. Yeah, you got residential, multi-land, farm, commercial. So we don't really get a ton of commercial on the MLS. There's other sources for that, but multi right here.
Okay.
Okay, what's the MLS number?
219 35. You want to kind of face into American board.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So this is actually a great way to keep using the CMA. So as a seller, or listing agent, you're gonna use the CMA to price a house. As a buyer, you're gonna use a CMA for value to recommend based off offers. So we'll look at the subject and we'll do the exact same. So I do this when I'm helping my clients write offers to be like, yes, we could write this offer. No, we can't. Lots of stuff. So we can see it originally listed for $999, dropped to $950. Let's see when it did its last price drop. Halloween. And it was built in 1970, 4 units, 3,000 square feet. The seller's paying utilities. The tenants are paying none of them. One tenant is allowing showings 24-hour notice, rest have to be scheduled and aligned. Gross rents, 5,400 a month. Lead-based paint, not helpful. 3 beds, 1 bath.
This is exactly what he thinks he wants.
Uh-huh.
You have to decide if it's actually best.
Well,
Extra parking, he'll live in one, rent the other.
what's the purpose? Like, why does he want it?
Just to kind of invest a big chunk of money's being given now close to. Also sells cars, so he could have like 4 of the parking spots for himself. He's gonna trust 300, or he's gonna put a couple hundred down, then put like 200 or 300 in a trust account to leverage. And count the income for the other 3.
Okay. So same concept. We go, we look at the condition, we look at what it looks like. Oh yeah, I know where that is. I drive by it like every day. Okay, cool. So a 4-plex is similar to a house, except you're gonna have to go bigger because you're not gonna have enough comps in Springville. Maybe we'll start there and then we'll go from there. So we'll go multi-full, same concept, active under contract sold. And I'm going to do just Springville City. I'm not gonna do a mile because where it's located, it actually falls into Mapleton. And a 4-plex in Mapleton, if it existed, would be worth way more than this one. I can find my cities. There they are. And the 1970s 4-plexes are great because there's lots of them. It gets really tricky when you get into older ones. Okay, so we have 6. I haven't done age. I haven't done unit. Oh, I need to do unit. Property type, 4-plex. So random side note, up to 4 units, you can get traditional financing. Once you go 5 units or above, you have to have commercial financing, and that's a whole different game because the value is based more off of the rental income that the property brings in, less on comparables. And we're doing a comparable search right now. So that gave us 2. We'll look at them. 950, that's our subject. And then 1.7, we'll look at them. They're not going to be comparable, and they're both active. So nice and not helpful. Love that. So we already looked at this guy. So this one is 1.75. It's new construction. Is it done or is it to be built? Looks done. Now available. So it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom unit, new construction. So not comparable at all. So like I'm not even going to use it, but fun to see it. So now I'm going to open it up to all of Utah County. Yeah, I'll start with that. And it kind of follows the same trajectory. Like people would pay more for a 4-plex in Lehigh than they would for a 4-plex in Springville. And it's all kind of based off rental rates. Utah. There you are. Okay, so we have 48, and now I'm gonna go do 1970s. 1980. Oh gosh, didn't make it. Tab. Okay, that gives us 28. 28. What?
You do a list, right?
I did not. Yeah, because I'm trying to determine my value before I play that game. But I still have my 4-plexes. And then with a 4-plex, the rental rate changes drastically between a 2-bed, 1-bath and a 3-bed, 1-bath. So I'm gonna see. If I can just comp with those. So we'll see what we have. Okay, so we have 810 to 1.15 in Orem.
Already know you can get 3 beds.
What?
I already know you can get 3 beds.
Okay, so I just did it by city, so I have my Lehigh comps, my Orem comps, lots of Orem comps, Provo, Santaquin, and Springville.
And to build that city.
Oh, I came over here and did the drop down by city.
These little things that you do so quickly.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I would prefer 35.
Yeah, well, let's see what the Orem ones look like. So he's looking to spend about the same. I mean, none of them are available, but since he has 2 months, they might become available. So you have the square footage.
These are listings from last year period. Closed.
Yep. Yeah, so these are active under contract, sold or backup. So I'll always start there and then change it from there. No. All right, I quit. Woo! I don't want to do that. Actually, that was probably, I'm gonna do that. It's a better way to show it without going into each one. Okay, so it's similar to comparing a house. You look at stylistically, did they look the same? Are they different? So the 70s is a great time because there was a boom of fourplex construction, so there's always a lot to look at. So you can kind of see it. So like this one, if it really did sell for that interest rate, I'd pull it out because it's not a good comp because it's a different term. But overall, I'd say they're all pretty close. 8 beds. A lot. 4 units, 8 beds, 4 units. Okay, so they're all so far looking like they have the same bedroom, bathroom count.
Jake, I have a question.
Yes,
On a fourplex, do they usually require to be interested?
yes. Yeah, if you're gonna own or occupy, you can do an FHA loan and do 3.5%. You just have to have enough income to offset and all of that.
The owner occupied.
Yep, and then Mountain America Credit Union has an investor loan that lets you put 10% down, but it doesn't cash flow. So kind of depends on your goals. Okay. So going back to the comps. Oh, I'm gonna answer this real quick.
Offered agent of that yet. And it does have a clean out for the yard, so they can run inside still clean out or. Okay. Yeah. Can have them give me at least a half hour notice. Perfect. Okay, so this much.
All right, sorry, due diligence stuff for my buyer. Okay. So this one is a little trickier because we have to make adjustment based off of location. But location adjustment is based more off of rental value than anything for a fourplex. So I'm going to be looking, so what I'm going to do is show you how to look up rental value. Rentler.com. And this is super nuanced. Like most people don't do rental properties, so they can't even do this, but it works. All right, so we'll start with Springville, search. Reason I like Rentler is it's where local landlords post and property managers, but it has this beautiful map feature, and I like the filter, so you can filter it, not you. Oh my gosh, go away. For property type, and I want a multiplex. So this one that's newer construction, that's a 3-bed, 2-bath is renting for 2,000. According to this, they're renting their units for 1,400. And as advising a buyer, I would ask for the rent rolls to actually see, because based off the math, it's not mathing. Because he said that the gross rents are 5,400, and when I divided that out, it was not 5,400. It was 1,350. So maybe there's a $50 a month thing they're charging that they didn't talk about elsewhere. But it's a 3-bed, 1-bath. That they're renting for that. So we have this one in Santaquin. So Santaquin will be valued less than Springville because the rent rate's going to be less. So it listed for 850, sold for 785. And we'll come see what it was renting for, 1,300. That's pretty good, 2-bed, 1-bath.
That's great.
Yes. And updates are fine. Yeah, sometimes they give you tons of helpful information and sometimes they tell you nothing. Yeah, it's not occupied ever. Fantastic, let's buy that one. All right, so then this one's in Provo. It was listed at $1 million, it's under contract. And it went under contract 2 months after. I do find investment properties aren't nearly as volatile it's been on for 2 months, so it's selling for under list or above list, because most investors are like, I'll sell it for this, and if they don't pay this, I'm not selling it. Like it's a math equation, it's not necessarily emotion.
See, Becca, that here in Utah, you see most properties like this that come with tenants already in them.
Yeah.
Usually where they.
Almost always come with tenants. As a agent, if I can have 1 unit vacant and the rest occupied, that's the best ability to sell, because you can sell to a retail buyer or an investor. And if you can sell to a retail buyer, they might pay a little bit more than a true investor would. So that's why I like to have 1 unit vacant, because then they can move in, do owner occupied. So this one, square footage is wrong. 3 beds, 1 bath. So this one's a good comp because it's the same setup of a 3-bed, 1-bath at $1 million. And the rents are $1,450. So that's pretty good. Location wise, it's not my favorite part of Provo. Can I say that? I don't think I can say that. Location wise, these ones, yeah, these ones always sell for less. Like if you had 2 in Provo, this one's closer to the freeway, kind of by the mall, that area. So they always sell for less when you're comparing. So this one's probably a pretty good comparable for Springville, because a buyer who doesn't like this area might go to Springville and get a little bit of savings. But the important stuff is like, when was all of that done last? HVAC, parking lot, roof, plumbing, and especially the age of these units. You'll want to make sure that the plumbing's been redone, and if not, do that during due diligence because that's expensive. Yeah, so you can see the freeway, these guys. So they're, yeah. But it's kind of nice. And you could call the agent and be like, hey, where are you under contract? He probably won't answer or get back to you, but maybe. This one's under contract, seller finance, Provo, 810. And it's a 2-bed, 1-bath. So this one has a little bit different layout. So for an extra 40,000 to have a 3-bed, 1-bath and more parking in Springville, I'd probably take it. Yeah, similar updates. And what was I trying to find? Oh, the rent rates. No rent rates. We don't know what it rents for. And then if these guys are selling on seller financing, yes.
Sorry. Thought.
Oh, if they are selling on seller financing, that also skews the value because they might be getting a better rate, so they might pay more for the property than what it's actually worth. So if at all possible, I don't use seller financing comps. So if I were actually pricing it, I'd call and be like, hey, are you under contract with seller finance? And he's in our office, so he might be more inclined to answer your question. What was your question?
Right, it's your clients come to you to buy a family, so what do you rent for? You're like,
Yes.
Sales and purchases, not rentals.
I use Rentler. It's my best friend. Yeah. I like Rentler because I can do the map and it has homeowners who are sometimes aspirational, and then it also has property managers, so I can kind of see pricing. This one's not great, but the map will let you let you go further out. And you can kind of be like, okay, we have, oh, I went to houses. I was like, what am I doing? Okay, so now we're looking at houses, and then you can kind of compare the age and style of the house.
Yeah.
By looking at the pictures.
Plus a little bit of keeping in mind that what's available means it hasn't actually rented it that, right? It's like
Yep.
looking at an active house versus a contractor. So
Exactly. Yep.
So would you ever say to it, like, let me look, or would you know? Like,
Oh, I always say, let me look, because it changes constantly. Because like renting right now is the worst ever. So the rent rate right now is going to be awful compared to rent rate in March. And if I quote a March rent rates and they buy the house and they can't rent it for that, I look like the bad guy. Where if I'm like, today's rent rates are this, but looking, and historically I can be like, well, I own a house in this city and this is what I'm currently rented for, probably pretty close. That helps. Buy lots of rentals. It helps.
Yeah. So that's okay being like, oh, I can look that up for you.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, never like always know have a source. Don't be the source. So go find it and answer it. But yeah. But yeah, so I play on Rentler all the time. Okay, so back to the subject. Okay, more seller financing, sold for $1 million, sold for seller financing. So it probably sold for more than market value because of that seller financing term. So I wouldn't use this as a comp. 2 beds, 1 bath. $850. I would buy this over the Springville house based off of its location, being a 2 bed, 1 bath. So this one being priced at $850 for a 2 bed, 1 bath. Provo. Heather Lane. Right there. Town center. So the ones I don't like are right here. This one's getting into slightly better. But if all things were equal, I'd buy this one over that one. And the rent rates are the same. So that tells me that one's probably not worth $850. Also, how long it's been since its last price drop and hasn't gone under contract. Yeah, they're all selling for $850 at the moment. And this one's even renting for less. Oof. They maybe paid too much for their house. Good job. 887 in Orem. 2 bed, 1 bath. Yeah, and that makes sense because it's Orem. So even though it has 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom versus Springville 3 bed, 1 bathroom, people would pay more to be in Orem than they would rent wise. So that's why it's selling for more. 900, 900. I'd offer 825. I don't know if they'd take it, but that's probably what I'd offer. Looking at what else is selling. But 850 with his parking situation is not the worst because it does help him have other opportunities.
He would prefer.
Yeah.
Opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. I actually need to value a fourplex in Spanish Fork. So now I'm good. I'm gonna save that one in Spanish Fork. No, I will not be selling it in 2 months. It's for a divorce situation, but valuing properties. So now I don't have to do it later. So thank you. Okay. Questions, concerns? Do I do an old house? Because it gets a lot harder. Yes.
I was gonna say, I have one that's 20 years old.
Hey, that works.
That's not.
20 is good because you're getting to the point that some are renovated and some are not. So then it's like, how do we do this? All right. Give me the deets.
You want MLS number?
Yeah.
11. 98. 55.
All right. Oh, this will be a good hard one. I like it. 4,900 square feet, 6 beds, 3 baths. Does it not have a basement apartment? Could it have a basement apartment?
No, it has a salon in the basement. So
Okay.
basement door,
Does have an entrance?
sink to 2 stations in one.
Okay. Nice.
Probably would be converted to a kitchen.
Okay. Doo, doo, doo. So does your client like it and you're debating? Or do you like it?
I find it's
Gotcha.
sort of making.
Okay. Beautiful. Orem's fun because Orem has valuable neighborhoods and not valuable neighborhoods or more valuable neighborhoods. So
This is right up by the canyon. So value.
valuable neighborhood. So I will do a mile because of that. So let's close all my tabs because I have too many. Okay, so I'll clear everything out. Same thing, active under contract, sold, backup. View map, circle map.
For like last 6 months usually to start.
I do 12 months.
Okay.
An appraiser can go up to 18 months if they need to. In a perfect world, I would do the last 90 days, but not enough inventory selling, so I'll do a year. But if you look at the year over year trajectory, it's similar to last year, so it doesn't matter that much. They can make time adjustments on appraisals. I wouldn't recommend comping a house where you have to make a time adjustment. Here we go. So I'm gonna leave my mile for now. I might, no, I don't have any Linden, so we're okay there. Carter Road's actually pretty nice. So cool. So hide the map and then it's built in 2006. And my assessment of the house is it has some updates, but it has quite a bit original. So when I'm looking at other houses, I'm gonna look at that. So I'm gonna do 2000 to 2012, because it was built in 2006. That gives me 10. The square footage was 4,900. So I'm gonna do 35 to, no, I'm not. 45 to 55. And that gives me 4, gives me 2. So that's not enough, but I'll look at them to see how good they are. We got our subject, and then we have this guy who sold. He listed for 1.15. He sold for $1,060,000, 5,000 square feet, 5 beds, 4 baths. The main thing I'm going to look for is ADUs versus no ADUs, because if it has an ADU, I'm going to take it out, just because that is a different conversation. Yep, has an ADU. Yay. So helpful, but not.
You're not going off the ADU box.
No.
By the elementary school. You're going off, is there a second?
Yeah, because if I go off the ADU box, I'm trusting the agent to do it correctly. And an ADU technically means it's been approved by the city, and some agents mark it anyways, some don't. So if it has a second kitchen, that tells me, depending on the buyer's risk tolerance, they need the apartment, so they might pay more for the house. But I'll look at it because it is stylistically very nice. Okay, so first thing off the bat, updated flooring, updated paint, even though it's not today's style of paint, it's not original style of paint. Gray and white was very popular in 2020. But you have a nice beach floor. The kitchen has been painted, new countertops, like I said. Gray's not. Yes, white is now the current style. Yeah, yep. So gray's, I mean, it's not a bad gray, but it's not the original, because we go back to the subject. We'll get there. Don't do this many outside pictures. Okay, so you can see that this is the brown and the knotty alder. That's very original. Well maintained, which is fantastic. Nice wood. Yeah, cabinets. Yeah. Yeah, it's like it might not be. Yeah, yeah. So like they've done some updates, but not as much as the other one. So like if your buyer had the option, they would buy this house over that one, probably. Not always, but probably. Owner's, okay, so the owner's primary bathroom's original. And okay, so their basement kitchen's not a real kitchen, so we can use it as a comp. Because it's similar to like your hair salon.
Yeah.
It could become a kitchen if they needed it. And the entrance is valuable. Okay, she can stay a comp. And is it on this side of? Yes, yes, north. Okay, perfect.
Sounds like.
Yeah, so this is a great comp. Yeah, so this works out to be a great comp because it is so close. It is very similar. It's a little bit bigger, but once you get to a certain square footage, the like 49 to 5,000 doesn't make that big of a difference. So we can see this one sold for $1,060,000.
Do you care that it's flirting with a whole year ago that it sold and sold in November, December? Think that.
No, it's fantastic because it's the same market. Let me show you how to find that. Okay, so you go to new tab, stats, sales per month. And I'm gonna not go that far back so we don't have to do too much. I'm gonna do just Utah County. And I'll do single family. This stats tab should become your best friend in real estate. Because all those questions that you're like, I don't actually know the answer, this will tell you. So if we go to graph view, no, sorry. It has all the other house, or it has the other house showing up. Just kidding. Okay. Utah County single family homes, this is what's happened in the market. So the important number is we have our median original list, median original sold, and we can see last November was around 600. And right now we're around 600. So we're actually very similar, which historically, if you go back, is what happens is we start in January, we go up to July, and then we start going down. So I would totally use a comp from November versus using a comp from July, because July has a $50,000, $30,000 difference compared to right now. Yeah. And we usually see that. So like when your seller's like, when should I list my house? I like to list between March and April so then I can catch this upswing of value if all things are perfect. If it's not, I can still sell their house throughout the rest of the year, but that's kind of that sweet spot. I hate to list in like June, because if you list in June and you miss the July sales window, now you're selling in September, and that's not great. Yeah. Okay, so stats, sales per month. Single family home, Utah County. And with these ones, the more data points you have, the better, because if you get too specific into a neighborhood, one house can throw off all your comps. So then I come over here to graph and then view results, and then it brings it all up. So just for fun, we'll go back to 2015. It'll take it a minute because it's a lot of processing. And then you can come click these to get rid of them. So days on market, sold count, volume, list of sales. Usually I take median original list out because it's helpful, but not. But this is the one that I'm like always watching. So you can see what happened. So November of 2015, the median sold price in Utah County was 273. And you can see we ran up to July of 2022. Ugh, give me July. July, there we go, 637. And then we dropped to January of 23, and then we went up, and then we went down, and then we went up. And we see that here, like we see yearly seasonality. You feel it in your business, get really busy in the spring, start to slow down. So we see that in pricing. And then COVID, like that should almost be taken out because it's not helpful. But it's really fun to just play around with the numbers. Or if that's like, this is too much, I don't want to look at that, you can look at to this one, yes. By quarter, because then it kind of gives you a better simplified view. So we'll look at by quarter, Utah County single family homes. And then we got our graph. So I'll get rid of listed, sold, and it shows you by the quarter. So it's a little cleaner to look at. So you can see your peak, second quarter, third quarter. But we're almost recovered. Third quarter over, yes. 610, our peak was 622. So people who are like, the market's crashing, it's like, actually, we dipped and we're recovering. Like we're 12,000 away from recovery at this point. So the best time would have been to buy fourth quarter of 2023 for those who were trying to time the market. Hey, 24. But yeah, so it's kind of fun. I don't remember what I was telling us all of this. Seasonality of real estate. Oh yeah, why you can use a comp that's a year old, because last year's market was very similar. And historically, I found that to be accurate. So when I'm pricing a house in February, I actually don't want to use the comps from November, December, because they're going to be a little depressed from the rest of the year. I'd rather use comps from February, March of the previous year, because they're going to be similar. But that was not true in 2020. Like in 2020, it was like, what was the last sold comp? 10 grand more. Let's get it going, or more. As you can kind of see by the run up. Like it was like, oh, we priced it for 5.6. Next quarter it was 5.30, then 5.58, and it was great until it wasn't. Then it sucked. But yeah. Oh yes, back to pricing the house. Squirrel.
Yeah, we won't look at number of homes sold at the same time.
Yeah. Yep.
Very different.
Okay, so we have one great comp, which I love, but that's not enough to determine value, because that house could have sold for a lot more because the neighbor bought it. And so they bought it for more than market value. So we're gonna go further out on our search. And we kind of talked about this earlier. Orem is unique. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw a line. This is too far. Going too far out. Oh my goodness, stop it. So this little drawing tool, I'm going to come about here, over to 800, up 800, down Palisades-ish. I'm not going to use Edgemont. I have some Provo comps in here, but it'll be okay. River bottoms are going to be valued more than this house. That was not helpful. We have one more. 925, 4,600, 7 beds, 3 baths, built in 2007. Not as cute curb appeal, 2-car garage. Yeah, that does matter. Well, when the house is so big, the house actually takes up the extra square footage, so it doesn't make a difference in the yard. But I would say your client would buy the other house over this one. Like they're not comparable. Okay, so now I'm going to adjust further back in time on age of house, because Orem, there's not a ton of newer construction, like it was developed so long ago. So I'm keeping my same location, but I'm going to go back to 1995, and I'm going to go up to 2000. This probably won't give me much, but 2015. No, give me one more. I'm going to go up to 6,000 square feet. I don't know if that'll give us much, but we'll try. Nope, didn't do anything. So we'll see. All right, that's not comparable. That's not comparable. Okay, so I'm going to, oh, that one looks good. Okay, so for 1.239 Skyline Drive, 5,400 square feet, way bigger lot, quite a bit newer in age, but stylistically, pretty similar. Pretty original, and it wasn't like ahead of its time style wise, so it looks similar to yours or to the subject. I'd say this one has a better kitchen than our subject. I like the great room dining better. That's interesting. Okay. All right, I'm not loving it, so I'm gonna go further out. So I'm gonna use the circle tool from my subject, and I'm gonna try and go get these houses. That didn't work. Over in Linden, because stylistically they'll be similar. And someone who would live in Orem would live in Linden. Usually Linden's bench is gonna be a little more expensive. I'm gonna have to cut a bunch of houses out, but it'll be okay. 41. So now I'm gonna go back and make it smaller. I'm gonna leave the house. Maybe I won't. That gave me 35. I'm gonna do a 3-car garage because that'll drop off a lot of the lower quality homes. Not quality, but because the house we're looking at is kind of an executive style house. And stylistically, even though it's the same square footage and everything is like those 90s Ramblers, it's a different buyer pool. So that should help. Cut off 5. Let's go look. I'm gonna do this. I'm going to cut out Cedar Hills, but I'll use Linden at Cedar Hills. And a buyer would do the same. Like a buyer would be like, oh, I would do these cities. And you can see Linden or Orem's homes are more expensive than Linden, which is telling us that people would rather have these nice homes in Orem than Linden. But it's also telling us that Pleasant Grove is more valuable. And then Provo is more than Vineyard. Okay, so I'm going to use,
More valuable.
according to this search, yeah. For the same type of house, age, square footage, and everything, people are paying more money for those PG homes. Because their range is 970. Oh no, sorry, I don't have a search by price. I have it just by age. I take my statement back. We shall see. My gut actually says yes to it, but we'll see. Okay, so comparable-ish, 1.2, 1.4. Interesting. 1,075,000 sold, built in 2014, 48. So this one's pretty close. Oh, that's an apartment. I'm gonna take that one out. $930 in Linden, 2004, half acre, 4,900 square feet, 5 beds, basement 70% finished. How big was that lot? 0.46, 850. One thing when I see a comp like this, 850, 0 days on market, no pictures. It was probably for sale by owner or a relationship transaction, so I'm less inclined to use it because just looking at the raw numbers, I feel like this is priced too low. So then I came down and saw no listing agent added for sell by owner comp. So I'm gonna pull it off. Because it's not gonna be helpful, because that would pull your value down. I mean, as a buyer's agent, pulling the value down is not the worst thing, but you have to still convince the seller. And if you send the seller's agent comps and say, your comps are wrong, not a great way to negotiate. I'll leave that one. Yep, that one we looked at. That one, I don't love. Yeah, that's 2 basement kitchens. That fills similar, but it's active. So helpful, but not. That's our subject. Okay. Okay, so update my results. I'm gonna sort it by price. So listing type, thank you. Okay, so high to low. So this was the most expensive. Sold for 1.49. Has good updates, has a bigger lot. I'm impressed that sold for 1.49. Oop, too far. All right, so this one, so we're doing the same thing. We're going through and being like, which one's nicer? First house nicer, this one's nicer. We've already established that one. This one, 1 point, you're active. I'm not going to use you. All right, this one sold for 1.3. 5,000 square feet, 5 beds, 2 baths, half acre-ish, 1.3, nice updates. Not bad. Shower. Okay. 1.2, 4,700 square feet, so smaller. But as we talked about earlier, Ramblers sell for more because they have more broad appeal. 2-story. Actually, let's look at your subject real quick before I say that. It is a 2-story, but does it have a master on the main? Yeah, so this limits its resale value because only people who can do stairs can do it. And you can do stairs until you get to a certain age. And my mom is in her 70s and still doing stairs, but they're not actively looking to buy a house in their 70s. And the people in their 70s have more money than the rest of us, statistically. So that is hurting this one's value, is the people who have the most money aren't going to buy this house. But the people who have the most money are going to buy this house because they're masters on the main. So style of house matter. And then the neighbor's house, then our house, and then this house. Hey. Fantastic. I really like this comp because this comp is very similar to our subject. Has a master on the main, and it's listed at or under contract somewhere around $995. Went under contract on the 30th. Last price drop was, oh my gosh. Does this one have a condition issue? That's a lot of under contracts.
Have this one under contract.
Did it have issues?
Did you not?
Did it have condition issues? Okay.
And there is 7 water districts across the board.
Okay. Okay. Love that. Okay. So the reason
Like, I really like this one.
it is a good comp. Exactly. That's why I like it. It's a great comp because your buyer would potentially buy it, obviously, but it's been under contract so many times. There's something wrong with the house. So it's not going to sell for that. Did they? Oh, that's painful. Whew. Which one were you? When did you cancel? August? September?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Poor sellers. That's rough. But great comp, and I love that your buyers had it under contract because that tells me it is similar in the range. But I would say the one they're looking at is superior to this one. So even though the lot size is bigger, like you brought up,
But.
this one has a better view.
It looks better. This one has a great view.
Yeah,
One,
and views are hard to value because views can be worth 100,000 to a buyer. And another buyer will be like, I'm not buying that house. Because depending how the view happens, like if you're on a cliff, you're like, I don't want it. But that's helpful to know about the lot because that tells you the lot's not like it's a nice big soccer space, but you can't put a garage or anything, which a lot of people looking for a half acre would want, a detached shop. Yes. Can't even do a pickleball court?
That's, yes, that Ford River pipeline, people, they say you're not even treat them.
I've heard that.
Rubbish,
Huh.
but there are true, there's.
It's gonna be real fun. Yeah, so I would say this is a great comp for your clients. And because of that one, like my gut is saying the house your client wants is probably worth $1,050,000, $1,025,000. Yeah, because this one is better than yours and it sold for $1,060,000. And this one's not as nice. Oh my gosh, too far. This one's not as nice and it's probably closest to $995,000. So that puts the value of the house between the two, even though it's listed higher. So yeah, then from there, it kind of depends on the seller's agent if they'll do it. Jared's a great agent. I like him. And then another thing I'll do. Why? He does builders.
Jared does.
Yeah.
The whole bit.
Oh, ugh, ugh, that's gross. That's awful. I'm sorry. Because they value things way different. Yeah. Okay, so then you can come and see what they financed on it last, see if they even have equity to work with you. So we can see they did a HELOC for 325. That doesn't mean they took out all 325, it just means it's there. And then we can see they financed did another HELOC, so refinanced it.
They own it outright. So that's-
100,000 in 2013. Yeah, he probably does. Yeah, so.
Hard to tell if they own it, right?
Yeah. Because in between, there should be a deed of trust transferred to them. So they put it into their trust in 24. But there's a reconveyance deed of trust, probably that one right there that says they paid it off. Let's see if I can read it today. Off of blocked. Let me see it. Yeah, Utah County's great. You can like super stalk people. It's weird. Okay, so we have a reconveyance of deed of trust. Okay, yeah, so he paid it off in 2016. And then he has a HELOC on it, so he owes so much, maybe not, at that 325. And you can't see how much that is because it's a line of credit, so it just revolves. But they show you the most of what they could take. Yeah. Yeah, so a reconveyance deed of trust means it's been paid off. And go back. So when you're like reading through this is a warranty deed. So they transferred it to their trust. And this was their reconveyance right here. No, 2016. Reconveyance right here. This was probably the reconveyance for the HELOC or a HELOC at Zions Bank. REC. Deed of trust, warranty deed, room of interest. What? Big abstract. Oh, they did an adjustment. Anyway, yeah. So yes, he paid it off, but he has a HELOC on it. But that tells me he has equity to play with. Where sometimes I see a house that they bought it. Yeah. Yep. And those ones I feel bad for. I have one right now. My client's buying it for less than what they bought it for 2 years ago. Like they paid $425. My client's paying $415. So I feel bad for them, but life happens. I think we are overtime. I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were overtime. Well, I would say less because the 1,060,000 was better than yours. So I would say under that. But it just kind of depends on what he'll do. But if you get it anywhere under that, but above 1,000,000, I'd say it's a good deal. Anywhere under 1,000,000 is a steal. Yeah. And it does have some updates it needs, but it's livable. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Ooh, I get claps. Thank you.